Good evening, everyone. Today is September 13th, 2023. BG&T meeting. We have five subjects on the agenda for today. Number one is the transportation and busing. Gary?
So we have Kathleen McDonald, Director of Transportation, here tonight to provide an overview of transportation. Answer any questions? What was yours?
Okay, good evening. First thing we need to really, go over is the driver shortage. There's a major driver shortage nationally, not just here. It's not unique to Monroe. We're all affected, but we're really feeling the pain now. We were kind of okay for a while, but the pain is starting to, hit us now. Driven mainly once COVID hit, a lot of the drivers just retired. They decided that was it. They were gonna retire. And trying to get new drivers in, there's really just not a pool to pull from anymore. We tried, we do everything that we can we have a number of campaigns where we try to pull drivers in with, advertising on Indeed and on our website constant. We just have a constant running ad. We never end it. We enlist the help of our other drivers that are coming in, new drivers, wherever you're coming from, bring your friends, and we've got a few that way. But it seems like for every two we get, we lose three. It just seems to be the way it's going. So I mean, we're quite short right now. We have 7 drivers short that we have not filled. That's not including all the excessive absenteeism and long term. So that lends itself to a very difficult situation in our department, just to get the kids to school. That doesn't include our athletics, our field trips, or anything else that is after school runs. All of that is affected by not having enough drivers. Just getting them to school, and that's our priority. Of course, that's our, to and from is the law. We need to do that, and we do that with it however we can. Getting a license is not an easy thing for a bus driver. It takes at least 2 months for a bus driver to get a license now, where it used to be 2 weeks. That was it. Just like your car license. Now it's an intensive training program they have to go through. They have to take classes, and so many hours, 40 hours of classes, 20 hours of on the road. And by the time they're done, it's 2 months. They're down, that's how long it would take to get a license. So a lot of people don't want to wait that long. They want a job now. So that's what we're confronting right now with all of that. We'll continue to keep doing what we're doing to get drivers in and keep our fingers crossed. We have a couple coming in, at the next board meeting. We have, 2 coming in. So we'll take what we can get in that order. Again, absenteeism is really high. So with the absenteeism, trying to get athletic buses after school has been difficult for us because we're doubling runs to cover the absenteeism and getting back late from each and every one of those. And then the athletics seems to be the guy that suffers from this. But so that being said, I mean, we double route a lot. We're going to be starting to do that now. I can see that coming because I just got a couple more today that are going to be out for a while. I reached out to the Ed Services Commission to see if we could contract, and they said, just send over what you need and we'll see what we can do. So I send over the contract, what I need to contract out. I want, a couple buses every single day for athletics and see, what comes back. I don't know if we'll get anything. I'm hoping we will. We may get 2 buses just every day for 2 athletics, and that's what they'll be totally for that.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'd like to get Steve to speak on the issue that he's facing.
Sure.
So that all the other board members know about it.
Sure.
And then maybe at home or whatever, maybe we can come up with some kind of solution or help fix the problem. So Steve, would you mind?
Yeah, of course. So in athletics, coming in, we sat down with Kathy and we talked about athletics having 2 buses around 3:15. The majority of our games are typically scheduled around 4 o'clock. We do have some games that are at 6 o'clock, but the majority of our teams, especially for sub-level, are going to be around 4 o'clock. So for us to get a bus at 4:15, it's already past that time. So I would have to reach out to other schools and ask if they're okay with pushing some of these games back. We face some difficulties in the sense that some of these other schools don't have lights, so automatically they can't, putting a game at 5, especially with the light, coming out, ending a little bit sooner, in the fall, it does affect us. So sometimes they say, hey, we can't, so we have to cancel those games or try to push them to another day. And for some varsity teams, some schools are okay with pushing it, but at the same time, when they push it, they now incur costs for, having staff a little bit longer and all those types of things. So sometimes they're a little hesitant for that. But again, most of them have worked with us, right now a little bit with that. But right now with the shortages that we're experiencing, we're not getting any buses at 3:15. I can only schedule for the most part at 4:15. And some schools are saying, hey, we can't accommodate, those needs for you. So we get into a situation where, unfortunately, this week we've had to reach out to some parents to see if they can help us out. I know it puts a lot of strain on them and their schedules, but at the same time, we're in a situation where I can say yes, we'll send some buses at 4:15 and run the risk of the student athletes getting there right at game time and not getting a proper warm up. Sometimes getting there a little late, depending on where we're going. If it's 30 minutes, it's great. Maybe we get there a little bit before, but if it's 40 minutes, 50 minutes, we're going to be late. And we also run the risk of other schools saying, hey, we got to cancel the game because the officials that we have another game at 7 and we can't run late. So there's a lot of things that kind of allow a little bit of a domino effect that we see there. So I know other districts have, reached out to parents to see if they can help out. They sometimes look to carpooling. A lot of schools do allow seniors to drive as long as, they have proper documentation for everything. And I think, right now we're in a position where we may have to explore those options. And I think that, part of it is, again, like the parents have asked, for communication. And again, we're trying to, see what kind of things we can come up with and, what alternatives we can find. But right now it looks like 4:15 is really the earliest I can get. And I don't want to get in a situation where I have to cancel sub varsity games. I think that those student athletes, work equally as hard as our varsity team. And I don't want to get in a situation where we say varsity is a priority. I think all of them are a priority. And we want to try to get them there as quickly and safely as possible.
If I can just, I wanted to bring something home because I think it's very important for the parents that are watching and the people that are going to share this information. So exactly what Ms. McDonald said, we've had ongoing meetings. We've already met 2-3 times already regarding these concerns. I want to just make sure everybody understands this. In order to cover the routes for our elementary, and we pick elementary because they're our last route of the day, to get home, we do not have any additional drivers to drive the bus to provide transportation for our sports teams for the we don't have physical lines. There are no drivers. Sometimes we double the routes. Sometimes we double the routes just to cover the elementary children home. So therefore, the 3:15 routes cannot happen. So some of the things that we've decided, chief school administrator made the decision, yes, we're working with both our insurance company and our attorneys, and we're going to have a letter. We have the waiver for people to drive each other.
I've sent that to the lawyer.
And then the second thing is, and we've done this before, we did it while I was superintendent last year, seniors may drive themselves, following the laws, following the rules, to the games, and we respect parents and we're upset with parents, but we cannot control what we cannot control. So we have no choice. There is no physical way now. The positive, we hope, so we're making that statement. We need people to, we can give them schedules far in advance. They need to find a way, oftentimes, to get their children to the games, get their children picked up, or sometimes we can't get them to the games, but we can bring them home on buses. We have now the positive side is that we've reached out to the commission. Now remember, it's just like when I need a specialized area teacher. The commission now is going to put forth, basically, we'll call it a posting, the postings of what we need, Ms. McDonald has provided, and we are willing to do 2 times 5, 10 drivers a week, right, 2 every day. We can get back 10, 15, we can get back 4, we can get back none. So I feel a lot of the emails, I know Mr. Baradica does as well, and I think it's very important that we make this statement. This has nothing to do with us scheduling in advance, knowing our needs, being organized, Mr. Baradica being new, none of it. The fact remains that the physical drivers who drive the buses are all utilized for the elementary runs who do not get done in time for the 3:15. I think it's very important to make that statement because there's a lot of misinformation out there. They don't know what they're doing. This is because he's new. It's absurd. It's ludicrous. It is not accurate. He has scheduling all the way to March, all the way till February, March. We don't have the bodies. Now, if we get these people, we're thrilled. The other comment I want to make is I got a couple of emails and some very lovely parents. I want to say thank you to some very nice parents. Why can't you just get a charter tomorrow, which is a coach bus? So a coach charter costs between $1,200 and $1,500. We do nothing without board approval. Everything goes on board approval. We do everything the right way. And it is an insane amount of money. We do not have that budgeted for. If we had to pass the cost to a parents, it's based on 54 on a bus. But what happens if the team only has 20 kids? What happens if the team has 57 kids and now you need 2 buses? So it's $1,200 to $1,500 per bus, and that's per run, per activity. So I wanted to and I thank you for the opportunity. It needs to be said, because when the misinformation is out there, it is incorrect, it is not accurate, and it's only causing acrimony and disdain, which we don't want. We want partnership. We want to be able to say to our parents, this is the way it is, and we want to work together. And a letter is going to be coming out via Blackboard from Mr. Barandika, highlighting all of these things, but we first wanted to have it at BG&T.
Can I add something else?
Sure.
I also want to just make clear that I think that, using these alternatives are also going to be like a secondary option. I will still continue to reach out to schools and try to change games. I will still continue working with transportation to make sure that we use and utilize the buses that we have within the district. I'm not saying we're putting all the responsibility on the parents, but, on a case-by-case basis, if we do get to the position where we need to use it, then that's when I would ask the parents or the kids to drive or anything like that. I still plan on doing anything I can for my office to try to make sure that the games are at a time where we can provide transportation.
Jerry, thank you, Steve. I'll let you finish, Kathy, but I want to ask Jerry something. Jerry, the drivers that drive the buses for the senior center and the township, they have the CDL required to drive the school buses, correct?
That's a Kathy question, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We talked about this today. It's funny, you asked a good question.
They do not.
ABC.
They actually need there's 2 endorsements, passenger endorsement and school bus endorsement.
And
They
you
may
don't-
have them.
And you don't think any of them are willing to get that endorsement? Because an endorsement's a lot easier to get than the actual license.
Sometimes you have to go through the entire
Entire
test
process.
again just to do the endorsement.
Okay.
But I don't know, they may have it and they just don't
You
use
could
it.
ask that question up front.
But,
Yeah.
and usually they have, there's different classes and they might not have the class B that they need for the bus. They have the C for the smaller one, which is fine for a lot of the.
We'll take care of it.
But that was my next question. A smaller bus would be sufficient for the team.
20,
So
stop.
it would depend on the size of our teams, but for example, on a day like, let's say tomorrow, initially we were requesting 6 buses. So obviously we would look for a charter, that would be extremely expensive, but in a situation where maybe, let's say we have a tennis team or some of the smaller teams, I mean, when I count asking for a bus, I include them. So if that's one less bus I gotta worry about because we have, something else arranged for them in a smaller bus, it would still make things a little bit easier.
Right, because so a tennis team can travel on a smaller bus.
Yeah, depending on the amount of, the amount that we have.
But we still need the driver, and we can have the question, so we can absolutely ask the township, would you be willing to survey your employees that drive? Survey, that not only to see if they would be interested, to also see what certification licenses, because we talked ABC
Right.
today. I got an education. So we talked about ABC certification, have an understanding. And I think the sad part is, we were so excited about, and thank again the board for approving. We approved a sub-pay, because we never had that before, and we have one. One. So I think the problem is, and I think you see when you go to a restaurant, right? You go to a restaurant, we have a restaurant that's been here forever. I go to eat in a restaurant, Americana's been here forever, and they say to me, I go, will the waitress be coming? And they go, oh, no. You have to use your phone to pull up the menu, and then you have to go to the bar area to order. I go, I'm leaving. And I left, because I can do that at home and order in and have it delivered to my house. And it sounds flippant, we're laughing, but it's really very true.
Yeah.
What has happened since COVID, and I'm not exactly sure, I left. I'm not exactly sure, I used to like it there. I'm not exactly sure why, is people don't want to work. And we even try and think out of the box with incentives and monies following the contract, because they are part of our MCEA. It's become such an issue, and I just thought it was so important. I'm so glad that we were able to put this on the agenda, because the misinformation that's out there is really very sad. And you could speak to that as a parent of.
I'll speak to that versus a board member if I may. Go ahead.
Just one more thought I had. What about reaching out to some of the members of our volunteer fire department in town, because they also have, I'm sure, the classification to drive.
They would all, anybody would need the right, endorsements, plus they would probably have to go through the whole, criminal history, background and all,
Yeah,
for the school.
sure.
For the school, when it comes out.
They may have it already for the job.
I'll reach out on that end and see.
It would be great if we could get somebody who's maybe an EMT or retiring.
Yeah.
And we leave it, like she said, some things we post as we need, it never goes away. It's posted everywhere at all times.
Yeah,
And we're not the only ones that are having this issue.
yeah, I'm sure.
It's across the nation, which is unusual, because sometimes you have a need in a certain area, but it's indicative of where you live, what state you're in, but for transportation, it's across the nation.
Gonzalez, I'm sorry.
I want to say that what you just said, I personally witnessed other towns and teams having this problem really bad last year, and we were saying that we're lucky.
Mhm.
You know, we're lucky. This year, we're not lucky, and it's not because we're not, anybody here is not doing a good job. It's a problem that's real. We don't have a magic wand to fix it. But I think as an administration, when you say that there is misinformation out there, it can only happen when there is lack of information out there. And if we knew, and now I can speak as a parent because I have kids in the sports program, going into this week, if we knew this is our situation, we won't have buses, before 4:15, and there were already games scheduled for 4. It should not have been parents being reached out at 7 a.m. Can you bus the kids today? That sends misinformation.
Sure.
We should have sent a blackboard Sunday night or Saturday night, and it's not to the whole school, to the sports that are impacted, football, soccer, whichever.
And I'll take the-
But I think part of the problem, as was explained today, is when you have a bus driver call out,
We did have buses, so the first day, so what happens
they have
is,
to pull
what
the
happens,
bus
we
from
pull them.
athletics to.
you know, when you get the email, and you have little ones, so you'll
And
know, you
that's
get
what
the
I
email
was
that's a double route, and your child's gonna be late.
Or was this a short, I think what I'm hearing now is that we really don't have the body. It's not like people
No, but
called
we
out.
thought we were gonna have the
specifically that
bodies.
day.
There are days where we have a bus, and for example, if all of a sudden they're short, then we don't have a bus.
So we
The two
started
days in a
out
row.
having the bus,
2 days in a row, soccer went through this where,
yes,
so was people called out 2 days in a row?
yes,
Yeah.
Oh, all week.
all
I
week,
had 2 more, there's 2 more tomorrow. I had 9 out today.
9.
We're
And you only
starting
find
to
out in
beat-
the morning.
Oh, yeah, they called sick.
with
So
3.
at that time also, instead of students sending out
Well, I have a better
I think
idea.
that you
I have a better idea.
Just to clarify, the communication went through the coaches. I asked the coaches, listen, this is where we're at, and they said, listen, I will try to reach out to my parents. And that's kind of how the communication
But
went.
we're gonna change it,
Okay,
because
so
But
Yes.
I totally understand.
but we're not gonna, now we're gonna do something differently. So now what we're gonna do is provide the schedule, send an email to the parents. Because even though we are always hopeful, parents, and I'm a parent, so my kids are grown now, but when I was a parent and I worked and lived very far, and I always worked, I would make sure to say that morning, aunt, uncle, neighbor, whomever it is, assume, well, we didn't have transportation, but if you do, it's almost as if you're gonna have to say to the parents, we are still working on changing the time, we're still working on getting a bus, we're still working on going to the commission. However, here is the schedule for the next 3 weeks. You may have to have a backup plan for every time your child has a meet or a match.
That's
I
fair.
mean,
And having-
and if I may say,
I mean
things are
that sincerely.
changing all the time in our office between, just cancellations because of officials,
Oh.
cancellations because of weather. So I have no problem sending out an email with the game, for a week or two.
That's
But
the way to
again,
do it.
It changes constantly. So the email that I may send, may change 2 or 3 times some of those games sometimes. I think that it may be, if I may, propose, in communication with the coaches and the parents, but a day or 2 before, it
You
may
have
be
to check
a little bit
again.
easier to kind of check, because again, things are changing drastically all the time.
Parents,
And I would hate to now confuse everyone by sending multiple emails.
and what's gonna happen is you're going to, because what's gonna happen is this. You're gonna have the parents, and I'm not faulting them, any parents work, we all work, right? It's still, yes, it is the district's responsibility to provide communication, but it is the parent's responsibility to follow up on the communication.
Absolutely.
Because what's gonna happen is he's gonna send it, and he's gonna listen to me, right? I'm the boss, I'm giving you the directive. 2 weeks in advance, tell everybody what the games are, tell everybody what the times are, tell everybody the locations, done. Let the parents do whatever they need to do 2 weeks in advance. But he's absolutely right, within those 2 weeks, who gets sick, who gets, now they don't have an official, now they don't have this, now the other team has to, so it's going to be on the parents. When we get the parents, they should not utilize this as fodder or anything. It should never be negative, because it's about kids. We forget it's about kids. And they should be able to, they should not be on Facebook at that point then saying, Mr. Berendica, because he's new and Mrs. Chenley hired him, he's now giving information that is completely wrong.
Absolutely.
You see exactly what I'm saying.
If I can say this, I think.
But that's what's gonna
at the
happen.
End of the day, for every sport, the person who knows the last minute details is the coach.
Mhm.
We just as an administration need to set a guideline for the coaches
I
that
agree.
communications of this sort need to be sent out to all parents in the team. Because a situation happened where last minute people scrambled and took the kids.
They
The
did.
parents didn't know that their kids went with people, right? Because the parents didn't even get that communication. The communication was happening in an ad hoc fashion. So I would say that because there are no protocols in place, that's possible. But if we just, as an athletic department, say every sport, every coach needs to have that mailing list of registered students, athletes, whatever level of sport they're playing, that will be informed as and when information comes to the coaches, so that parents are in the loop.
Because the way we have things set now, for example, we have a Google Sheet with transportation where I'm putting my requests in 2 weeks in advance. So I'm asking the office, hey, these are the games that I have, these are the times that I need buses. So right now, again, because we don't have 3:15 buses, all my requests are at 4:15. But they're in communication with me and saying, hey, we can do this time or we can do that time. So again, if I'm still gonna use the transportation, there may be some times where we're gonna have a 3:15 bus or a 4:15 bus that is sufficient for a 6 o'clock game.
And you don't
So
want
in
to
those
drive
cases,
them.
I can
Yes.
talk to the coaches on a week-to-week basis and say, hey, coaches, these games we're good to go. These games I've identified as potential, we may need some help with from the parents. And again, and that way we don't get all confused with a bunch of different schedules. But I think that would be a simple way to kind of deliberate that information to the coaches so they get.
I have another question. If we allow seniors to drive to and from these games, does that leave our district open?
No,
For any kind of lawsuit?
no, we have a form that we're gonna provide, we did it last year,
Okay.
and it's legal because they are legally permitted to drive by the state of New Jersey. So they are legally.
I don't feel as a parent of 3 athletes, I don't feel that
They can,
I would want my child to drive home after a game where they've exerted themselves.
But
They can't.
Especially if, God forbid, they twisted an ankle, or they hurt their shoulder, or they got maybe
Well, it has to be the
knocked
parent's
around.
decision.
And
It has to be the parent's decision.
I was gonna say, I know that the policy is only to allow seniors to drive to school, but what about allowing those juniors that have their license for them to drive themselves as well?
We haven't done that. I mean, in the last 2 years that I've been here, we haven't done the juniors.
they
my-
have a
Would it be
license.
something that,
The law,
I mean,
they're
in-
not.
they're legally allowed to
same
drive?
thing, yeah.
In
It's
my
just the school's
experience,
policy, they're not allowed to drive to the school.
Yeah, we'll run it by you, because we run everything by the insurance company, and then we run the form at the insurance company by the attorney. And I don't disagree at all, especially age-wise. Let's be honest, you could be 17 going on 18 as a junior,
Correct?
Yes. yeah.
where your birthday falls. So
right.
realistically, I do agree. I think the reason why I made the statement before about the negativity, I know we don't do our job by Facebook, but Facebook, unfortunately, and all social media has such a strong
Presence.
presence,
Everybody gets
and I want to make that statement.
unfortunately.
Please help us. Please help us, help you have a good communication system
Yes.
by the positive on Facebook and saying,
Constructive.
please, by all means. I mean, and some of the emails I got were lovely. Maybe you should do this. Maybe they were very nice. Maybe you should do this. Maybe you should do that. All good things. We just want to know that if he provides information and the information changes, it's not because he doesn't have the ability to know what he's saying. It's because the information changes.
Absolutely.
Let's go with it. Let's go with what's changed, and let's make things successful, because it's not about us. It's not about the Facebook warriors. It's about the children. We don't want the children's games to be canceled. That's what it comes down to. It's
Stefan,
about the
one
kids.
more aspect of this.
No, this is a big deal, and that's why we're so glad BG&T fell out at this time.
The seniors driving, you said you're gonna check with the insurance on the juniors driving. I think the other aspect of this, allowing them to take underclassmen. We might have to be very clear, because seniors oftentimes drive underclassmen between practices. But when we are allowing this officially as a school district,
I
we
think
need
we
to be
say
very
only,
clear.
drive
Yeah,
yourself.
we need to be very
And
clear.
it's gonna be in writing that
And
way,
then
but
parents
legally,
driving other children, not
legally,
theirs.
just so you know, we will put in the form that covers us to only drive themselves, but by the law, a senior can drive one other person.
But they're
Agreed.
driving kids to school. We allow them to drive kids to school.
Yeah, because they
Yes.
share spots. You're
No,
right.
they're allowed to drive.
I just said they're
underclassmen.
allowed because they share
It's
spots.
not other seniors. They're allowed to drive underclassmen to school.
No, I know. That's, no, don't they also share spots?
Well, that's senior.
Oh, okay.
senior. No, I'm saying seniors drive underclassmen to school. We allow
They do,
that.
they do.
Why would we say you can't?
You can't
You
drive
drove,
classmen.
you drove Johnny to school today and he's on your team, but you can't drive Johnny.
So why don't we do, so
So
you know
the
what?
only thing we need to take care of that, in that case, is that we have parent waivers about who is taking their children. It could be specific, or it could be a general one, but we really should have,
Well, we're working
In
on
the document that I sent over to the
the
lawyer,
lawyer
it
already.
specified 3 different ways, either the parents driving them, allowing them to carpool with another parent, or allowing their senior, again, it's specified.
We'll
their senior to
look
drive.
into it though.
but there'll be
But yeah, we can.
a waiver that the parents.
I'll be honest with you, if the insurance company says, as per the law, and they drive to school, a senior may drive one underclassmen if we get approval through the insurance company and approval through the attorney. We have not done that yet. I mean, I can only speak my 2 years here, so we did do a senior driving by themselves, like that's all we did.
Do we have to get into that and say, if you have a driver's license, you are allowed to drive yourself to the game? Why do we have to specify you could drive one, you could drive? There's a law, the New Jersey state
You could
law
drive one, is
says
it two?
at 17, you could drive one, at 18, you could drive however many you want. So
As long as
a lot of
seniors
seniors
drive, as long as.
We have a lot of students who are 18.
Senior, you're only allowed to, the school district, state of Jersey says you could drive 6 people in your minivan if you wanted to, but we're telling you, no, you're only allowed to drive.
So what we'll do
If
is,
you break the
No,
policy,
you're
then
right,
you're.
no, you're right,
we-
18-year-old, yes, as long as
I
we
didn't know how it
have,
works. I told you.
Something that says you're following the law.
I think we need to
Guys.
acquiesce to the insurance company and to the attorneys.
I want Kathy to finish so she can.
Yeah, I think she is, she's done.
You're done?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted her to come here. I asked Ms. McDonald to come here because I think it's so important that people that are watching this and the communication on social media sees that we are working hands in hand with transportation, with Ms. Barandika. It's what we talk 10 times a day. We're constantly going back and forth. But we can only do, we would love everybody to wake up and say, I retired and I want to be a bus driver.
Yeah, and if I could just say one thing, I know you made the comment that last year we were lucky. We weren't.
We weren't.
Your child's sports may have been prioritized with
Right.
the buses, but fall field hockey had bus problems, girls soccer had bus
Correct.
problems. All throughout the year had bus problems, and it was.
Some of the games
it was
were-
a
all the
constant-
core club
What I
games,
understand.
that's
A
probably
lot,
why
a
we're
lot
seeing.
of.
Well, also there were certain sports that I would say that perhaps
So
were
it's
put over
not
other
something that's
sports.
just occurring this school year. It has been, and I mean Kathy could attest that this has been going on.
Then we weren't lucky last year.
Mid-year too.
You were lucky.
Your team was lucky.
Boys soccer was lucky last
So
year.
that's where we're at, but we're working very,
But honestly, it's not about one sport getting preference over other. We definitely have to all understand it's a big problem. It's all over. But the way we deal with it has to be.
well,
you know,
proactive,
yeah,
being proactive,
about
having plan A,
communication,
plan B. And
No
she could
chance for
She
misinformation.
could call me on Tuesday, like she called me right afterwards, and, today's Wednesday, she could turn around on Monday and say, oh my gosh, Sherry, 7 people are coming. It
And
could
then
happen,
everybody
it could happen, we don't know. So, but I would just like the parents to know that you can't just send us an email and say, please get a coach bus. That doesn't happen, it's not possible.
And the coach bus takes.
They need quite 3 to 4
can't get
days.
those right off.
They require 3 to 4 days, and that's it,
Approval.
and it has to be board approval.
Trust me, I got asked that question a lot of time. Why can't we do a coach bus? I wouldn't approve it. We know how much money we have. You would have approval for it.
You reached out to neighboring towns like East Brunswick and see if any of their drivers wanted to work
Athletic,
overtime or.
I have not, but then they're,
You can't, the way it works is they would have to come on and they would have to be approved as our sub and then paid as a sub because we don't
Okay.
commingle unions, we don't commingle associations. The
Okay, so,
MCA is part of it.
so they would be signed on as subs and then be able to drive all bus?
They're in the same situation as us.
Situation. They're driving their elementary school kids.
They're not any different, their times are, I won't say identical, but they're very similar to.
later.
You're later, which is,
Yeah.
oh, you're later.
Our kids don't get, our elementary doesn't get out until almost 3:30.
And what about Spotswood?
They only have a couple buses.
Yeah, they're very small districts.
Yeah, they're small.
So we have the same problem as everybody else.
We do. It is not unique to us. It's
And
throughout.
what about Jamesburg?
There's no buses.
You don't have any buses
They're
at
walking
all?
districts.
They're walking. We've bused them.
That's why they don't have to worry about closing the schools like us.
No buses at all. Okay,
So now we know what business to go into when we all retire.
yeah.
And a lot of.
And also, Kathy brought up today also that the state increased the requirements.
Yeah.
And there was something with, I think, older drivers,
The older
right?
drivers now have to, yeah, they're put through.
The state had something to do with the wheel, they make it a
Yeah.
square.
They have to do, yeah, so we lost people that would normally be able to drive because
They have to have,
there was a bus accident in North Jersey.
And they have to take out-
the
They
state
put
stepped
that
in
through
and
a lot
they
more,
changed it, so.
than the regular drivers do. They have to have a state, physical as well as DOT physical. They have to have it twice a year. they all say, not worth it. It's not worth it.
People just walk away, they
And
don't.
that's across
too
the
much.
state, that's why there's such a
Yeah.
shortage of drivers across the state.
And the whole test itself, they're required to know what's under the hood. Housewives, we used to be able to get housewives and mothers that.
And they did a great job.
And
I
they
was,
said-
I was the vice principal back then.
I
Yeah,
want to know.
I don't know what to think, like, are you gonna fix the bus while there's 100 kids on?
That's,
Jack it up,
that's
diesel
DOT
engine?
though, that's not even state, that's DOT now.
That's DOT.
I'm with you.
Yeah, like I said, if they had something to do with reinventing the wheel, it would be square. Because they like to just make
I
everything.
can't wrap my head around when you gave it a square wheel.
All right, so we'll, I guess
We'll just keep doing what
Go
we're
with it.
doing.
And we thank you.
Work together
And
and-
anytime you call me, I hope it's good news.
Good luck with the, commission helping you.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I'm hoping, I mean, I'm hoping. That's all I
Commission not helping you, helping us actually.
We asked for 10, we asked for 10.
They're gonna help
Happy with
us.
5.
just gonna pass around this, this picture of the field, the varsity
Okay, thank
baseball
you.
field, that's number 2 on the agenda. I'll pass it around. I'm sorry I didn't make more copies.
No, that
Was
was,
it, was that, that was your.
You had it.
You have it.
Yep.
We saw it, yeah.
we all seen it.
All right, so, Jerry, you wanna talk about that? Varsity baseball field?
So we have Mr. Barandiga here to speak to this, but before I turn it over to him, just to give the board a little history on the baseball field over at the middle school, former high school. High school was built in 72, the baseball field constructed sometime after that. The dugouts there were actually built by students, we believe back in the 80s, some Bob Neely students. And in 2014, the field was in pretty rough shape. We reviewed photos the other day with Ms. Chanley showing where it was before things happened. The board at that time, after some urging from parents to upgrade the field and the facilities, set aside some money, spent about $150,000, primarily putting in a new backstop, rebuilding the dugouts. We brought in Edwards Engineering, who surveyed the site, regraded it. And that's what you see, that's the drawing that you saw, to show that it was professionally done at the time. At the time, the athletic director and the coach chose a design that involved a dark shaded area you see there. There's a very fine crushed gravel behind the home plate area. There's the infield mix that you're familiar with. You see the skin surface of the baseball field, and behind that is this material here. And this is what is currently drawing some concerns. Some parents have approached Mr. Barandiga, and I'll turn it over to you from this point.
Yeah, so some parents approached me in regards to some concerns that they have with the gravel on the field. I was told that, we've had some officials who have questioned, the material there. I took a look at it and, I think that, for right now, maybe it's not the most ideal type of surface for us to have. However, in communication with Jerry, we have also, identified that, the field is in playing condition. It's not like, it's not unsafe or anything like that.
It's appropriate to play on, correct?
Correct, yeah. So, but we are always open to looking to improving our fields, and if this is something that we need to kind of look a little bit further into, I think that, right now, if we have some concerns, I would propose perhaps reaching out to an independent company who can come out and just look at our fields and kind of tell us, kind of the state of where they are. If we were to have to do something to it, it would be something that, we would try to do before the season starts. So, I don't know if the board would be okay with me, seeking some kind of report of our fields to kind of see where we're at.
I just have a question. The material that you're talking about, what is the parents' issues with it? Is it coarse? Are they scared their kids are gonna slide into it and
So they're,
scratch themselves and get injured?
so they're concerned and
Because the words that you said to me were, the parents are concerned,
You don't
but you
find-
also had officials on the field that said this material isn't.
so.
Were you there? Is this what parents were reporting to you, or did you actually have an official say to you there was something wrong with the
Oh,
ground?
no, I haven't been around during
Okay.
baseball season yet. So the parents have expressed that, that some of the officials have questioned, perhaps the type of material that's there in case someone lands on it or anything like that.
What do other baseball fields have?
So
Dirt.
other fields are either dirt, sod, or clay is what I've seen. I mean, we do see that type of material in the warning track sometimes at the end on the outfield to alert the individual that, they're going to get to the fence.
Yeah.
I personally have not seen that, but obviously in athletics, things do change,
Mhm.
and sometimes, it's a material that's being used and then all of a sudden it's a material that isn't used. So, again, I think that it would be maybe in our best interest to try to have someone come out and see,
And then,
Well,
but
I-
there's a cost associated with it.
Yeah, well, I don't think that we need a company to come out and tell us that the same thing that, parents who have kids playing baseball since they're babies. I mean, if this material is not on other fields, then obviously it's
Is
the wrong material. We don't need an expert to come out and tell us that. So why spend the money there?
There's a grass line, I went there today, there is a grass line, and that rounds out the actual playing area. That is behind that.
Right,
So
so if somebody's going for a foul ball catch, they have to stand on that.
Well, but it's completely flat, and it's like I forget what they do, it's like a crushed gravel, so that when the catcher stands up and jumps back, you have to be on a solid surface.
Right.
Otherwise, if you're on something like grass or turf,
Slip.
not turf, you can slip, yes.
So it's his thing.
And when you're going back.
No, we don't have the grass. She's
No, you
saying
don't
that what's
have-
there
no,
is not dangerous.
What the grass outlines the field, right? So there's grass all around, there's a small little,
Outline?
outline of the grass on flat. And then this is behind it. It's been like that forever.
Has anybody reported getting injured on that stuff?
No, I'm not smiling. Mr. Tager, you aware of anybody?
And you gotta be careful what you put back there. It's normally like a dirt or that type of material because it's more so the catchers that jump up to go for the ball, they have to have proper underneath their feet.
So
that
sod
they
would not be proper for that? I said, this is out of my realm.
Because then we can just
Essentially
repair.
a warning track for the catcher. I think
Right, it's
prob-
warning track for the
So
catcher.
in 2014, the AD, okay, if the catcher's going back and he's feeling the gravel,
Right,
it tells him, I'm about to run into the fence.
exactly.
And the same thing in front of the dugout. It communicates.
So that would make sense to have the gravel
Yes.
fence.
It's unique,
It is unique?
unique
I
to,
mean, I would say it's unique. I would say, I understand where Mr. Tate comes from, but I would say that the majority of the fields that I've seen
Have dirt,
have either clay or coarse sod.
clay or
So
coarse?
what about if we,
sod.
what if we were to just replace on where the catcher would be with the clay or the sod? Would that be a solution?
Well, we talked about the sod, and one of the issues is we have, sprinklers for the other rest, for anything else
Part
that's
of
sod.
the renovations that was done in 2014 is the field is now irrigated, which has helped tremendously, obviously.
We would have to do the same there.
There's under drainage underneath this gravel too, so it takes some of the water load off the field. If you're gonna put a product in there, I would suggest
Clay.
sod in lieu of the clay. Now, the clay
Clay or coarse, what mud, because the
is
drainage.
too large an area, and the water problem we have in that area because of the grade. Sod would probably work better, but we'd have to extend some under drainage, and if you put sod in, and
Need
have to make
sprinklers.
sure your sprinklers reach that too.
So then the price goes from just saying, we'll put a piece of sod to sod, looking at the drainage and the sprinklers, it could be 20,000.
Now, if you talk to the baseball players from, I don't know how many years this has come up, the infield dirt needs to be replaced and addressed. Because that is all rocks. The kids actually are sliding and they're cutting up their knees and they are getting hurt because, and it's never been addressed. And the baseball players bring it up every year, brought it up every year under Mr. Byer, and there was never money to replace the dirt. That to me
Imagine
is
having-
the biggest.
Not having enough money to replace dirt. What kind,
Well, it took you-
where we
Well,
live?
you would be amazed.
What it costs.
Dirt.
But that is the, I mean.
But if the
If you,
players are getting
if you
hurt.
ask if you ask myself as a baseball parent that sat at that field for many years, that was the biggest need at that field and it hasn't been addressed.
So I think what has to be done here is that you have to, if I were you, you could do this yourself. We don't have to hire somebody. X the parents that are on the field, X the players that are on the field, X the coaches, X the officials that are at the games. See what their thoughts are, and then we could address the problem from there. I don't really think, my personal opinion is I didn't even know there was
Well, I'm gonna
an
bring,
expert ball field.
well, there's anybody that could evaluate anything, but just like you would any
Yeah,
other.
and I get
When we had our football field, right, we had somebody come in to
Yes.
tell us if it was,
but that's a major undertaking. This is just basically a patch of.
No, that's that
something.
one area, I think,
The reason why we would
I was just gonna
propose
say this.
doing it early would be if we are going to change something and Mr.
The
Tate, you
season
know,
starts early.
Right.
we would have to lay the sod early. So like right now, it's almost even.
Too late.
Kind of cutting.
right,
close.
and the parents,
That's why-
the parents that came forward, the reason why we also wanted to bring it to BGNC is number one, for transparency, that he's also looking at the softball field. We wanna look at all fields. This is not just about baseball This is about baseball, softball, any other needs. The other thing is they want to know if they were able to do fundraisers for X amount of dollars, would we then be able to have X amount of dollars? Now, the way we always do things, and Mr. Take does this every year appropriately, we have different areas in which Mr. Take places monies and needs, HVAC, boilers, whatever we did, shared service agreement, we with our beautiful football fields, whatever we need. So we don't want to move forward. We want to bring it appropriately to BG&T to say, these are things that were brought up. Just because it was brought up, and we know that parents want to say that they want to help raise money, just because they want to raise money, or always want to take someone's money, but at the same time, if they want to raise money for something that the BG&T does not feel is the priority, then we don't want to even raise the money for that particular area. So I, as a person who's have not walked the field, and if I did, it wouldn't make a difference because I wouldn't know anything except I was walking in dirt. If the area that is behind there is gravel and has always been there, and it's never been an issue, let me rephrase that. To my knowledge, I know of no issues regarding anybody getting hurt.
Is this sod something that you can handle internally?
No, because we go for a large roll sod for that, not just the strips, not like the
Right.
smaller Home Depot stuff.
Right.
But you wanted to say something, I saw you were gonna say
You gotta
something.
make sure it takes, you gotta make sure that it's at a level where,
Right.
because now you're putting another thing back there. You gotta make sure that the catcher, there's not a lip, you
Right.
have to make sure.
And we already have drainage there, and we're gonna need irrigation, because we're going to need
Right.
sprinklers. So what parents, and I respect it, and if they're watching, I think it's wonderful that they want to add financially. I think it's incredible that they want to raise money for their kids. It's not just like, and we get this a lot, well, let me buy one air conditioner, put it in the window. It doesn't work that way. There's so much more involved when people want to do it. So we don't want to stop anybody from giving us money, but want to make sure that we are utilizing the money appropriately, and that's why it has to come to BG&T.
So furthering on the point, in 2014, there was a parent group. They established themselves as, they were called Field of Dreams, and they tried some fundraising. They weren't as successful as they'd hoped to be. But the Monroe Township Diamond Club, I believe is a baseball organization, they chipped in at the time and they donated, I saw the resolution, $7,500 towards, the dugout
I was
bench,
just about to ask
And
this,
I think the scoreboard.
and scoreboard, yeah, some of those things.
that's one of your favorite things to do, so I'm gonna do it today. Can we, even before we decide whether we're gonna do this or not, first get experts from the Monroe Township Baseball Club? I'm sure there is a Monroe Township, Baseball Association,
Yeah,
right?
Ross.
That plays the travel and the rec league.
Oh, yeah,
Right, so they
MTBA,
have-
yeah.
Yes, so if we could collaborate with them and have them come see our fields and give advice, what do they think is the state of this field? Because they're maintaining the town field. Get an opinion that way, ask our coaches for opinion, ask our players for opinion, and then maybe see if they can help us.
And it may not be for this year then, because although you have people that say, I want to raise money, they have to understand there is a protocol and a procedure to moving forward what we do, because we could talk about the state of the softball field, which we should, next. So it's not just one field, it's just that the reason why baseball came up was because parents came forward. That's where this
We
came from.
have to listen to the parents. So we
Of
don't
course.
want to not discuss this, but we have to move this forward for sure. But I think since none of us, except Chrissy, I can't say that, knows a lot about baseball, we should just get more opinion on this.
And
Document it.
as I just said to Gonzalez, the field, softball, baseball, are fields that haven't been upgraded, like our lacrosse field, the cage field, and the football
Yes.
stadium, is something that you put into the document that did go to the township.
Yes.
Of our wants.
For
and
Friday's
needs.
meeting.
So that is something that we are asking also the town to help us with.
Okay.
It absolutely was on the radar
Hear an
of
answer
what
from
we
that
need.
before we do anything with
Right.
this.
Absolutely.
But I do think that before we have a next meeting in October, if you would agree as the chair, that perhaps you engage
MTBA?
and your own coach.
Yeah.
And your own coach or coaches, if you have
Also
varsity, junior varsity, and to look at it, and then, did you want to quickly, oh, you're the chair,
I'm sorry.
ask him about softball, because I had him walk the softball.
Well, you might as well ask him.
I'm sorry. I just get down
Mr.
to
Hanley wants to know about softball.
So softball doesn't have, gravel, it's all grass in the area.
Okay.
I know that, in softball, some of the issues, in talking to the coach, are flooding near the dugouts are some problems that they have there. There, I think some of the needs are a little bit more cosmetic, trying to, paint the paint and, the windscreens and padding. So those are simple things that I think, on a year-to-year basis, we can address just from a standpoint of, our regular budget and, the needs and equipment-wise and stuff for teams. But I don't see as great of a need in the sense of something like
Well,
that.
something cosmetic, could we reach out to parents and maybe they can volunteer some time to paint some stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I
We
think,
can probably handle that ourselves.
I think the concerns that we have, yeah, I mean, I just walked them on Monday. I didn't even get a chance to talk to Mr. Tate about it, but I think that, I think that the needs there aren't anything stressful.
Yeah, this is the first I'm hearing of anything to do with sports, this
Okay.
year. So this year, we're finally having the
All
conversation.
right, so we're gonna wait to hear, on Friday's results, and we'll wait to hear back from Russell Church, his name is. Russell runs the rec program baseball, and
He takes
I would,
care of the facilities.
I would consider him an expert on
Ask
what,
him about the dirt.
yeah, I would ask him exactly what he thinks of that field and,
Maybe we can go to the developers that are digging all the holes and they need to get rid of their dirt, and we can take their dirt. I did it on
From
purpose.
MTBA
blood
fixed
pressure.
the field at Oak Tree, right? They were very instrumental in fixing the.
Oh, really?
Field at Oak
So
Tree.
that would be great, so that they really could have a
And
good,
then from there, we allow them to use our field for, because it's a larger field than the older.
I have the lights on it too.
And it has lights, they put in the scoreboard, we gave them.
Oh,
It's a win-win, it's a win-win, right? And
yeah,
I know
I mean,
that's
that's
not-
community engagement. There we go, there you go, cross
When you
over and
mention
and
So
cross over.
if they help us, if we, they should be able to, and I know we say in our policy, we allow that, but I know, I don't think that field has been ever utilized other than our high school
And middle school.
and middle school. So, I
Sometimes
mean,
we
that
get,
may be
sometimes they go to
something-
Oak Tree.
That may be something that, if they're willing to help us when we're not, when we're not having games there, maybe that's potentially, because I know that, the MTBA is always looking for fields too.
Right.
I know we've used Jamesburg fields, we've used the fields down across from CVS and at Oak Tree, so maybe that's something that if they could help us and repair some of our needs, maybe we could open up that field for them too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, let's move on, because we're running a little bit late. Number 3 on the agenda is the ROD grants. Jerry?
So the committee and the board, you may recall, I applied for 3 ROD grants to the state, ROD being regular operating district. One was for the telephone system that we're just completing installation of. And then I applied for 2 for Applegarth School. One was for the roofs, and that was about 3.5 million. And then the other was for the HVAC system and electrical upgrades, and that was about 6.6 million. Pleased to report that we received notice that our projects at Applegarth School totaling $125,170 were approved for the ROD grant in the amount of
Great.
$4,050,068.
That's awesome.
What that means is then we have to come up with the remaining $6 million.
Now, is the 1 million that we're getting,
Yes,
part of it, so it's only 5 million?
yes.
So we can apply that 1 million towards.
So we need approximately $5 million, or we cannot accept the money, is that correct?
Well.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I just want to make that,
Project, though, but it's all
for that
broken down into projects. I
Yeah,
think
so
we
you
did that
could-
on purpose.
You could take part of it. So
Right.
the way the grant works is the 10,125,000 is the estimate that we came up with working with Epic. We proceed with the project, we issue contracts. Let's say the contracts come in at 9.9 million, not the full 10.10. The state adjusts your grant based on the total
Mhm.
contract. If you go well over, they're not gonna pay you over,
Correct.
but it can be adjusted. So for example, in the $3.5 million worth of roofs over there, you're looking at, say, 3 to 4 primary roof sections. If for some reason the board can only proceed with one section, obviously that 3.5 million will be reduced to 1 million, and your grant allocation will be reduced accordingly.
So if the project is cost lower, our grant reduces.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
we get 40% of whatever it is.
And what we have, we're short 5 for both the projects, for both the
In total.
projects
In
together.
total, right. We was short 6, but we got the million we didn't know about, and then we found out.
So we already, I was gonna ask, so
That's
we
the million.
already are taking that million.
Yeah, so that's why we need 5 million. And it's such an incredible opportunity that if we didn't come up with the 5 million, we're losing quality of 5 million. Like, in other words, it's a lot of money.
But the piece about the money is, so the 1 million is additional state aid, so that has to be encumbered by us before June 30th of this year. So we've already started working with Rich Alariso, how we're gonna take a section of this project that we can complete design on
Good.
and bid and get under contract.
For the million.
30th.
For the
For
million,
the million.
which is
So
great, because we have to spend it.
And then the balance will come after, because you recall the board authorized, we used the grant monies we received to
Mhm.
engage Johnson and Urban, our mechanical engineers, and Dig to do the roof piece. So we've been well engaged in that design process.
So we're ahead of where we need to be in that regard.
It kind of we need to establish really the HVAC piece before we do a lot of the roofs, because HVAC equipment goes on the roof. We're not gonna design the roof and the equipment after. However, the 1936 building, which is standalone and will not be affected by the HVAC work, may be one component that I'm looking at
For the million,
to apply the $1 million to it.
that's excellent.
So we did not receive notice on the phone system. Doesn't look like we're gonna get that money. However, we fully budgeted for that.
We were hoping to not have to use the money we fully
We were
budgeted.
hoping to be able to get additional monies that would do, put into
And we
reserve.
relatively
to apply
You
towards
didn't hear from them, or they are not gonna give it to us?
that. I don't believe they're gonna give it to us.
Because you
So
were
we
hard
have
for
not
them.
received formal notice in the way of, the formal notice we'll get is what is the PEC letter, or preliminary eligible cost. And then you have 30 days to respond to that if you want to, before the final eligible cost letter comes. We're not gonna challenge that in that 30 days because they agreed with our number, the $10.2 million we put in there. They agreed and applied 40% to that. That really comes into play more so if there's an unhoused student issue and the amount fluctuates, but we got the full 40.
Similar to when we went out to a referendum and we got the numbers.
So we'll get the PEC letter, we'll let 30 days expire, and then they'll issue the FEC letter. Now, to give you a little history in terms of like when we need to move on this. In 2014, I applied for 2 RIDE grants for the middle school. One was for windows for the school, a little bit over $1 million, and the other was for roofs at the school. Both were approved, both was presented to the board, and the board said, go ahead with the roof, but hold on the windows. So that was December of 2013, we received the PEC letter. In January of 2014, we received the FEC letter. 2 years went by, 2 full budget cycles before the state finally said, okay, where are you? You need to send us a formal notice that you're not proceeding with these projects. But we did have 2 budget cycles where we tried to get it in. When it was first approved, I said to the board, hey, put this in the budget for this year. They cut it and they said, okay, we'll try next year. And the next year, unfortunately, they weren't able to do it. By that point, the state said, that's it already, you have to concede the money.
Wow. That's it.
This was 2014,
2014, yes.
that we were getting something we didn't
Yes,
act soon enough.
For windows.
$460,000 and ended up rejecting.
The BA in it?
So your recommendation,
What was the BA?
if I may
Yeah, it
ask,
was always
Mr. Panel,
Oh,
if I may ask this question, so we have $1 million to use, we've decided we're gonna use it towards the roofing project, with a piece of the roofing project.
I'm looking at the 36
1936.
building and the electrical upgrades. We have to bring in a new electric service to there.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try and,
So your recommendation on acting on this is, what is the timeline? Because we have to get the money for it.
that is the timeline. The board, in developing the 24-25 budget, either needs to say, okay, we're gonna come up with $5 million in developing the budget, and that is gonna be applied, or, there are other avenues that I don't know that are.
So if we come up with $5 million,
that are being explored.
if we come up with $5 million, we can do all of this.
Yes.
Yes,
And if we come up with shorter than that, we have to pick what we're doing,
correct.
whereas we need both.
So when we sit down and we do, so we're starting the budget defense rounds, and then we always meet with Jerry, of course, and then we have the conversation about where would this money come from? Because if our budget, as we know, now we're in a position where, because we're gonna go out to vote, we grow the budget more than 2%. We also know that we spent more than 2% on salaries. I mean, I'm not an accountant, but I know simple math. So we spend 4%, it's 2% you're shy, basically in simple terms. So these are the things that we have to take into consideration when moving forward. But, and of course, it's the board's decision, but it's money that we need. So, but we do have, I mean, we are having, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Friday's meeting? I don't know if he wants to finish his agenda first. That was still meeting
let's
Friday.
finish the agenda. I mean, we're already going
Well,
over.
what
so-
statement you just made, you gotta be careful of how you say the
Right.
percentages. Our overall budget grows, we could grow if we.
2%.
The entire budget,
The entire budget
right. The salaries.
are 7 or 8.
Are 4%, but it's not the.
The entire budget's approximately 80,
Right,
70,
so
yeah,
it's just.
75%.
So I just wanna make sure.
No,
because
I'm glad
people
you did.
take the
Right.
percentages and then they.
And then they do
make
whatever
these
they want on those
calculations
numbers, yes.
and-
Yes, that is correct. So we have already gone 4% of the 75% of the overall budget.
Right.
Middle school.
Okay, next is middle school PAC HVAC project. I included some pictures just to show you how progress is going over there. As I mentioned in the reports, we received the rooftop units to take care of the choral and instrumental classrooms and some of that piece. We are waiting on delivery of 2 large units that go on the back. And we've been prepping that area. You've seen some of the photos where we've done some of the structural work on the pads and some of the duct work ready to go. We've also been working on controls in the building. Those units are set to ship, I believe the ship date is 9/15, and then we'll see them shortly thereafter. The committee recalls that we gave an extension to this contractor because of supply chain issues, so the project is looking to wrap up by the end of the year, December. We're doing good there. Also, I included in the handouts is a request for a change order that I asked the contractor for, and it doesn't specifically relate to this project, so just give you a little history. The board last year selected the PAC HVAC as the capital project to be put in this year's budget. That was designed for all the units in there, and it also included the new control system. So the middle school Andover control system is circa 1997, so it's 26-year-old software control operating system that is, antiquated, and it needs to be replaced. So the approach I took with the PAC was, we're gonna put in a new head-end Johnson control system that will take care of all the new PAC equipment. And then, as the board takes care of the balance of the building, we can add those components in. After the middle school PAC project was bid, awarded, underway, through it was the ESSER monies we applied to purchasing the new chiller and 2 large rooftop units for the existing building, which will take care of a decent percentage of the air conditioning there. We now have an opportunity to try those new units into this new control system. So worked with the design engineer for this project and come up with a design and details in order to tie those things in. So the proposal is for $46,000, which will take over temperature controls for the new units that will be coming in, and they'll all be tied into the same system. Highly recommend we go ahead with this. The flip side, if you don't have control of those units, it's just the daily operating cost of them kind of running wild. You'll lose money for energy.
They look nice though.
Yeah.
They do.
And we have a unique opportunity in that we have this control system going in now. We have the contractor
To do it right.
mobilized on site. We get a better package just to kind of tie all this in.
So it's 46,000.
As far as where does that money come from, we mentioned the telephone project earlier, so we had $800,000 budgeted for that. We did well with that. That came in at $740,000.
Oh, what are the odds?
So you're sitting on $60,000 surplus there, which can easily be applied here. Take care of this.
$12,000 savings.
I reviewed it with Ms. Allen.
No brainer.
That's
Thank
the
you
way-
for solving that problem.
Thanks for coming. So you came with a problem and a solution.
We don't have time on that.
We give them a star. Anybody have little stickers?
Maybe we could take that up, put some dirt on it.
Still do them, right?
Smelly stickers.
Oh, yeah.
All right, you want to go to number 5, the recreational storage shed for Barkley Brook School?
Can
Just
I?
to clarify those, so with the project, we are working through some existing duct conditions in there that I may come back to you at a future meeting, say, you need to do some changes, some minor modifications, but that'll be handled separately.
Can I please ask a question on that?
Okay.
I'll make it quick.
Go ahead, Gonzalo.
Okay,
And I know it's not directly related. We were still waiting on the chillers
Yes.
and they're expected December sometime? I'm trying to understand if
Perfect.
it was exceptionally hot 2 weeks, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about it. Would that solve that second floor problem?
It will solve a decent percentage.
not the whole thing.
No.
So the way that system works over there, a lot of it is, what a chiller is, it's an independent unit that makes cold water, which runs through a 4-pipe system, runs to the classroom unit ventilators, for example, blows through them, cools that space. Several of the rooftop units have coils in them that are fed through the chiller. Some are what are called DX, or direct refrigerant units, which have Freon in them, which are independent, so the chiller does not affect those.
Okay.
Those 2 large units that we talked about that are going over the A wing, they're DX units. They're independent, they'll run on refrigerant, they'll be standalone. So the A wing will be taken care of first and second floor. The chiller, as I said, will take care of a lot of other areas. But keep in mind, you're gonna be running that chilled water through air conditioning units and rooftop units that are 27, 28 years old. The ASHRAE standard on them is 18 years old, so you're putting premium fuel in a 25, 26
Studebaker.
year car. So
Studebaker.
it's not gonna be ideal. And until we can get those units replaced and tied into the new control system, that's when things will be
Which we
ideal.
haven't yet budgeted for, we haven't.
Well,
put
we've
that
been
in.
trying annually, and this is what we've been working towards. We hit the Performing Arts Center first, because that is the oldest equipment,
Mhm.
followed by the base building itself.
Thank you for the update.
And with that said, if you want to just say quickly
Wait.
what the,
Wait.
No.
Wait. I have a question, I'm sorry. While the contractor is there doing the chillers, did we check if the contractor offers any kind of financing to replace those other units? Does he have a finance program?
I mean, leasing,
Any leasing finance program, something, did we check into that?
Well, we wouldn't do that through a contractor. So traditionally, if
the leasing company.
the board finances their own money, we get a better rate that way. So for example, the phone system that we just mentioned, Ms. Allen goes out and bids for that money, and then that is
Love to do
staged
that.
over several years.
Yes,
So
she
we
does
built
it. She's very good at it. That's
So have we looked into that at all?
for the additional, the leftover equipment, yes.
Yes, so
Yes.
that has been put in the budget annually, and
We keep a piece of
when
it and we get
bid
rid of
the
some of
Performing
it.
Arts Center, we also bid replacing the boilers, because the boilers at the middle school need to be replaced. They
Right.
came in about $1.8 million. The board didn't have the funds, so we had to reject
We
it.
had to reject it.
So we do have a plan for things, we just need the money to institute the plan.
Okay,
So-
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was
No,
gonna
middle
say,
school.
the-
So-
about what Gonzalo was bringing up
So
about middle
what,
school.
yeah, so what we decided to do, well, what I decided to do, and we discussed it, and I spoke with Ms. McDonald, so we got through it. It was very important. I think the children, and I know that they were hot, and I went to all the buildings, and I was hot too. I will say that only the middle school, we had a little bit of an issue at Woodland. I walked the whole building, thermometer, it was 72, the air was coming out at 72, which is good, but some of the rooms were 76, because there's it's not just the air coming out, everybody knows that. So it was a little warm, I went back again, it's working very well. So the only true school that we have to worry about when we had a heat wave, everybody needs to know that it was a heat wave, it was 98 degrees, it wasn't normal temperatures, is the middle school. So I've had conversations with Dr. Higgins in the middle school, I had conversations with the transportation director.
But
Oh, well, I'm gonna talk about that in-
About the rooms.
No, I'm gonna do that too. So a couple of things is we're gonna have a plan B, and it's gonna be sent home in advance. If we ever have another heat wave, we are able to make the middle school students go home half day and not affect any of the districts. So they still get their time in, it doesn't affect them academically, and it also they're also not our babies, although I know we have sixth graders, it's still not the same thing of calling the half day, so that we're gonna do in advance.
Busing, not a
But
problem.
not a problem, everything's good, we already checked it out. The other thing is, and I think this is important to note, that Dr. Higgins does, and his VPs, they do an entire schedule, Google sheet of classrooms that are available every period that have air conditioning. They all have air conditioning that is working at the proper level during a heat wave. Once again, I'm gonna repeat myself, it was a heat wave, it wasn't a normal day. And they have the ability to move. So I know a lot of children, but a lot of the teachers also, they're so into the teaching, it gets overwhelming to move the materials and so forth, but I think it's important to note that we are constantly saying, who needs fans, how can we help you, and do you wanna move? So that was plan B. Plan C, of course, would be if we had to go to half days for that day or two. The schedule's gonna be sent out in advance. Dr. Higgins, I discussed it with him, it's gonna be proactive. Ladies and gentlemen, we're so glad the beautiful weather's upon us, but if we have an active God or an active being, it was a heat wave. It was 98 degrees.
But there was measures in place for
Absolutely.
teachers to move. I
And
think
they-
it's important to be said.
And they
because
chose not to.
of the stuff that was, posted on social media, the teachers were complaining and, oh, our poor teachers, they're so hot and they're sweltering and there's
Let's go
no,
back to social media, don't we, huh?
well,
No, you're absolutely right, I said it too, I agree with you.
but it's important to know
Yes.
that the administration at the middle school had places that the teachers, if
Yeah.
they felt was too hot, could move to a cooler location. If they chose not to, that was a decision that was made by the teacher and the administration,
Correct.
but they were able to move to a cooler.
Right, and Woodland was the only other school that was, I will not say they were not like the middle school, but they were slightly warmer for that one day. And also I was there walking the building with the principal, and the email did go out also. Do you need fans? And not only that, would you like to move? Because they're a very small school and they have very small number. So, I'm glad we got through it, and I'm so glad we were able to open and.
But thank you for sharing that, because that does help answer some of the concerns I have.
Sure.
So we have already.
The shed,
a contingency plan in place where
Yeah.
we could.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, number 5, recreational storage shed for Barkley Brook School.
So the committee may recall, maybe 2, 3 meetings ago, we talked about a request from the ping pong group who stores their ping pong tables in 3 large metal sea box containers behind Barkley Brook School. And they were asking for some paving revisions to make it a little smoother transfer. You may also know that there's a housing development that is near complete on the other side of Barkley Brook School there. And part of the agreement that the town, the board had during the planning for that was that the developer had to provide a passageway through so that during lockdown drills, evacuations and so on, the fear was that the students exit the rear of Barkley Brook School, there's nowhere to go, they're kind of trapped back there. So this passageway would allow them to get into Queenston Commons, I believe is the name of the street there in the court, and safely get over there. So now that the houses are developed, that developer has started to do that pathway there. It turns out the pathway lines up right with one of the metal seat box containers. So I was working with Mary Lang from the rec department, who's just fabulous to work with, and talked to her about, hey, we need to move the one seat box so that our passageway is clear. She coordinated getting that emptied, they were gonna move it, and then she started having some discussions, and she said, how about if we get rid of all three of those big ugly metal boxes, and the ping pong group of records will put in a brand new storage shed. Which I think is-
That fixed three ping pong pits?
It'll take care of.
The three-
storage, it'll be a large storage.
So it'll accommodate the
brand
three.
new. We're not looking at those big, ugly metal containers,
Right.
the homeowners aren't looking at.
That's a
them.
win-win.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're in agreement, we'll tell them they can proceed.
Absolutely.
Can she fix our field?
Does she have any dirt?
There's no harm in asking.
Does she have any dirt?
She's feeling jealous, maybe.
Did pretty good, 12 minutes
Okay.
over, not bad.
Well, we started 10 minutes late, but
So there you go.
did you want to speak on the meeting we're gonna have with the mayor
Yes,
and
so-
business administrator on
So,
Friday?
yes, please, thank you.
Yeah,
So anyway, the famous line quoted is wants, needs, and must have. So, the business administrator for the township had reached out to me, and I shared it to Ms. Zelinski, my wonderful secretary, who went ahead and he gave us 2 dates that worked for them. And we picked one of the dates that they provided, and after we picked one of the dates, we then ahead and included, as we had in the past, our board leadership, which now is Ms. Bora, and of course, Ms. Gerby, and then, we thought it was prudent to also include our, building, grounds, and transportation, committee chairperson, which would be Mr. Tavano, moving forward, and then, all the, of course, Mr. Tague, and Wyman, myself, Ms. Allen, and I believe it's been brought to our attention, not through me, via, our president, that, Mayor Zelinski, Zelina, Mayor Delina, what's in the name? Mayor Delina, is not available, but we made a decision, I believe, to keep the meeting. So if you want to explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so,
Wait, I just have a question. So they picked the dates.
They gave us 2 dates and we picked one of them.
We picked one of the two.
we for a meeting to, have some questions, I guess, from the packet that was delivered in the summer. They had some questions, so they have their bond counsel and their attorney who's going to meet with, Ms. Allen, Mr. Tague, Ms. Chanley, to vet some questions. And Mayor Delina didn't realize that would, or didn't intend to have any elected officials at that meeting.
Oh,
So he was not able to make that meeting, so it wasn't scheduled around his schedule. He didn't realize he should be at that meeting. So, he reached out to me and said, you know, it's a much different meeting with elected officials, so would you be willing to just let the professionals, district administration, township administration, meet to have their questions answered? If not, you know, he was available next week. So I did reply, and I shared it with Ms. Chanley, I did reply that I do not want to hold up any meeting with township officials. The process needs to continue to move forward. So if you know, I have no problem with myself, Ms. Bora, and Mr. Stefano not meeting, you guys going and getting questions, but since he's available on the 21st, as he said in his email, I think we should have a meeting that day then too, because then they have a week late, they have a week
Great
then to work through the answers to our questions. And then, because we really need to have decisions made. And he said the Friday meeting was never going to be a meeting to have decisions being made. It was more of a fact-finding question answer. So I said, that's fine, let everybody meet and get your questions answered. But then perhaps on the 21st, when you're available, we can all sit down and meet and maybe perhaps have some decisions made. Because we need to, I just checked, not yet.
Okay.
So, you know, we do need to, we can't keep moving this along. I mean, we delivered it back.
Oh, we
in
were
July.
timely. We were absolutely timely in what we said we
In
would provide.
September, we need to get moving, especially with the rod grants. I mean, that's
money that's being
time
given
is
to
of the
us.
essence,
I
so.
have an idea. Maybe on that second meeting when Steve Deline is gonna be there, the mayor, perhaps he can invite Linda Greenstein there so she could hear our needs and wants, because I remember hearing that she had no idea what we needed here, so if she can make it to that meeting, that would be great, because then we can get the mayor and
You could
her
ask
to
him to,
understand the
because
needs
you'll
and wants of his
communicate.
district.
I can ask.
And we could bring the letter that we prepared through the LA and CE committee we
Yeah.
could have it done easily, because we're only adding maybe 2 lines.
So, I mean, I'm hopeful, I mean, the town was, you know, they were willing to enter into shared services for the football field.
So
I know
maybe-
we have a lot of stuff on there, and I'm really hopeful
Very
that
hopeful.
sitting down together with the two administrations and their bond council, I think Lori is planning.
Our
on
bond
bringing
council will be
bond
present, yes,
council.
she's already, she confirmed today.
You know, that with we're so close to
Mhm.
getting all of that done, and now that the state's given us another 4 million, so 5 million, or we're 5 million short, you know, the township has been able to go out to bond for 4 million for pickleball courts and
Tennis courts or
to fix all the volleyball courts, and they're building the veterans home, which is absolutely needed and fabulous.
Expansion of
Perhaps
the
they
police
can
department.
Oh, the
bond
police
out
department
for
expansion
the-
is what was
It's
it?
definitely more reachable for them than it is for
Right,
us. So,
yes.
and I'm hopeful, like you said, this could work. This could really
So we're
work.
gonna keep the meeting, and we're very excited that they're willing to meet with us.
Place.
And then, Ms. Kirby, as the
That's all we
board
have.
president, will
So
confirm.
you don't have an issue with sending that email asking for Linda?
No, I can, absolutely.
Everybody agree with that? Is that a good idea?
Great idea.
Any attempt to get her.
I'll even bring donuts.
I don't like donuts with holes in them. All right, that's it. It's a wrap.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you so much.